Welcome to the Rush to Fail podcast. I'm your host, BJ Gramillion. Today, I am here with Jason Nelson. The majority of the time that we've been in Arizona, I've known Jason and his family, and very excited to have him on the show today. Jason's a dentist, and he's got a lot more than just dentistry going on. They've turned it into a pretty incredible business. So, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to tell us just kind of a little bit about maybe some background? Tell us a little about you, your family, your career, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in northeastern Utah, way out in the middle of nowhere. It's a place where you don't go by accident. So we grew up
What's it called?
It's called Roosevelt, Utah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in Roosevelt, Utah. We're about 2.5 hours east of Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. And I grew up on a farm. So that was my dad's full-time occupation, and it still is, even to this day. And I have a couple of brothers that are taking over the farming operations, and wow. So it's still in the family.
Cattle, right?
Yeah, so we had cattle, and then we raised a lot of hay as well. We did. Oh. That was probably our main thing. When I was there, and then we had about 300 head of cows. So spring and summertime was busy. Man. But it was fun, though. I mean, at the time, I thought it was brutal. Yeah. My buddies are out playing around in the summer, and I'm working, getting up early and, working late. But looking back, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, because the things I was able to learn, the work ethic, all those things have paid off, massively, in my life. I grew up there, and then I went and served a 2-year church mission. So I went to Japan and lived there for 2 years. Came home and then went to BYU and actually majored in Japanese.
Oh, that worked out.
Yeah, so it was great. Worked out really well.
But that was pretty easy, I imagine? No? Or was it a lot more difficult?
It was. I did have an advantage because I could test out of a lot of the lower level classes. Sure. And it catapulted me forward in my academic career. Yeah. And basically allowed me to pick up all the science classes that I needed for the my core classes for dental school. So
that's why you chose that as your major, so you could expedite knowing that you wanted to be a dentist, right? Is that kind of...
yeah, kind of. Well, that, and it to be honest, it padded my GPA.
There you go.
Because all those classes I could test out of, I got A's in. Yeah. And so it shot my GPA up, which I needed to help me get into dental school. But it was nice too to not, I guess, be the traditional, science major applying to dental school.
Yeah, I don't think I know anyone that has a major in Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was the only one in all of the schools I interviewed at. I was the only Japanese major.
Really? Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I then graduated from BYU and then went to Ohio for dental school. So I was at Ohio State, and Eesh. I know that's hard for people in Arizona.
Skip over that. Just edit that part.
It's hard for people in Arizona to hear that. I get.
We don't like winning schools here in Arizona. Right. It rubs us the wrong way.
Yeah, and my office is right here by ASU campus, and so I have a ton of patients from ASU, and they, hear where I went to dental school, and some of them jealous. Get up and walk out of the room. Yeah, but. No, so I had an awesome time there. Got a great education, and then graduated in 2010, and then came straight here to Arizona and went into private practice with my brother-in-law, who's also a dentist. And we've just been working.
Why Arizona? Because your wife is from Utah, right? Or is she from Arizona?
Yeah, well, we're both from Utah. Yeah, so her family lives in Utah now as well. But my sister and my brother-in-law were down here. Oh. He graduated also from Ohio State about 10 years ahead of me. So he had 3 practices here. And one of them we had actually bought before I graduated. And then when I graduated... we bought our second office together down here. And so he already had kind of a framework put in place, and had some good momentum, and had a good support team in place, because we could share resources. And so it made, going into an office right out of school not as intimidating, because I had incredible support.
Cool.
And people that he had kind of, or a team that he had built. And so it helped me really flourish, having, a good support team around me, and people that I could trust that would help, lead me in the right direction.
Sure. Yeah. So did you ever anticipate your career turning from, being a dentist to now it seems like you've gone a little bit more towards like the business side of dentistry, where now it sounds like some private equity is involved, those type of things. Did you ever imagine that occurring, or how did that occur?
No, I would have never had imagined the position that we're in today when I graduated from dental school.
Yeah.
I mean, even like 7-8 years ago, I would have never even been able to imagine this.
And how did that work out? How did you guys get into that side of the business?
So, well, my brother-in-law is the visionary. Like, he is the kind of the big thinker. Let's let's go big. Let's reach for the stars. I'm more of the practical one. I'm the one saying, "Hey, hold on a second. It's great to reach like that, but there's a lot of steps along the way that we need to accomplish, and things we need to be watching." Yeah. So it from the get-go, it was a pretty good, partnership, because we kind of balanced each other well. He would stretch me and pull me. Yeah. And I would rein him in a little bit.
Interesting. So he's the visionary, and you're more the operations guy. Like,
yeah, I would say I'm. No, I mean, because I'm more, I guess, the just nitty-gritty details.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily risk averse, but he would be more of a kind of come up with not the plan, come up with the dream, I guess. Yeah. And I was more like detail X's and O's. How is this going to work
Here's
out?
The map.
So which worked out great.
Yeah.
As we were starting, because it's always a little nerve-wracking going into business with family. My wife Sarah was nervous about that.
Yeah.
She said, because I have a great relationship with my sister, and had a great relationship with my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And it's kind of risky.
Yeah. How has that been? How has that worked out for you guys?
For the most part, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
He's been an incredible mentor for me, and I've learned so much from him.
Good.
And he's really helped push me in areas where I think I needed it. And I mean, there's been a handful of times where there's been some stressful situations we've had to handle, but for the most part, it's been awesome. And I mean, looking back, I would do it again.
Really?
Yeah. No, it's been awesome. So
yeah,
we went in with our eyes wide open, and and have been pleasantly surprised. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think everyone always tells you, hey, don't go into business with a partner, right? That's hard enough.
Yep, it's tough.
And then let's go ahead and add on the family component. Yep. And you're pretty much, I'm sure you're like one out of thousands. I don't know. I would love to know what the statistics are for those partnerships that last, and you guys and you're still in a partnership together?
We're still partners. And still
how long has it been?
Work together. It's been good.
Or how many years?
How long has it been? Let's see. It's been almost 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because I graduated in June of 2010. Awesome. So we're coming up on 13 years now.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been great.
So I imagine, obviously, where you are today, where you were when you graduated, there might have been a few bumps in the road, right? Oh, yeah. Unless, you are kind of a freak of nature, I've always looked at you as like someone that I never want to compare myself to, just because this is someone that will, run marathons. He's run the Boston Marathon. He, incredible athlete. basketball, great with the youth, and just there's so many things. I'm like, is there anything that is difficult for you to do? Because you make it all look easy, right? And I love that about you. But I imagine there's probably some more stuff that goes on behind the scenes, maybe that people don't see. And so maybe if you wouldn't mind just sharing, maybe some of those, right? Pull back the curtain a little bit and say, hey, here's really what's going on.
No, it's all been pretty easy. It's
perfect. All right, we can wrap this up.
So I don't know what everyone else's problem is.
Why did we get you on here?
No, it's
who let him through?
It's so interesting. Yeah, because we have that perception. When we see others, we think, oh man, they've got it figured out. Mm-hmm. They have everything buttoned up, and they're all put together. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. And I feel that way all the time. I still do. Mm-hmm. Looking, on a clinical aspect, looking at other, dentists or surgeons or, people that I aspire to be like, mm-hmm. I think, oh man, they have it all.
Yeah.
But we forget, how hard it is to get to that point. And there's a lot of growing pains, mm-hmm. That come to get to that point. Starting out, I started in a small little office. We had 3 treatment rooms. It was like the office total was like 900 square feet. And I honestly wondered, what were we thinking when we bought this place?
Yeah.
I didn't see how it was going to work. But my, Chet, that's my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He had said, just trust me. This is going to be a great opportunity. So I reluctantly, jumped in, mm-hmm. and I was pretty cocky, I think, when I started off. I thought I had everything figured out.
Yeah.
And quickly learned that being a dentist and a business owner, it's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
And the thing that I struggled with the most, and probably still do to this day, is like the leadership aspect of running an office.
Yeah.
I had a mentality that I'm the boss. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep this professional, and you're going to do what I tell you to. Mm-hmm. I would try to do it nicely, of course, but if I'm being honest, deep down inside, that was my mentality. I'm the boss. This is how it's going to work.
Yeah. How did that work for you?
Well, obviously you can guess. That mentality or that approach, did not go well, with the teams that I was, in charge of leading. And another problem I had is I wanted to put off this perception that I did have it all figured out, that, I had my crap together and just listen to me and it's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. So I was closed off. I did not want to show any vulnerability whatsoever. And so it made me very unapproachable. And the relationship with my team struggled.
Yeah.
There was a lot of tension that I had to deal with those first few years. One quick, funny story. This is a stupid example. Mm-hmm. My lead assistant, and I was probably out maybe 2 years when this happened, but we had gone. I can't even remember what the situation was, but she was just ticked at me for some reason. And I remember going into one of the treatment rooms to see a patient, mm-hmm. and she didn't put gloves out for me. And for whatever reason, that bugged me.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm the doctor. You get my gloves out. You put them on the counter where they're supposed to be. I didn't say it that way, but I said, you need to make sure you have gloves out when I walk into the room. And I didn't say it nicely. Uh-huh. Well, the next patient I go in to see, there's like a mountain of gloves sitting on the counter. It lit me on fire. I almost fired her over that stupid incident. But I was hot though. It made me so mad that she would disrespect me like that.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember what I said, but looking back, that was one of my aha moments where the light bulb goes off and I thought I need to change some things.
Yeah.
Change my approach. Cause I was all worked up over, something so stupid.
Yeah.
So that's just a small example of little things that I would do. And I was always really pretty closed off. Like I would never share anything about like personal life or, things that I was into, things I was doing.
Yeah.
And it made work just not very enjoyable.
Man.
And so, I thought it was normal. I thought it was fine because
Sure.
I would show up and do my thing. I'm busy,
yeah.
but I didn't realize like the effect it was having on my team.
Yeah.
And now as I look back on it, turnover was a huge issue for me. We would cycle through employees and team members, and I just thought, well, that's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
But it kind of is, to some degree, but.
They don't make them like they used to.
Yeah,
right?
seriously. Oh yeah, kids these days.
Yeah,
seriously. That was always, and you get on the message boards, right? You get on on these dental Facebook groups, and
sure.
you get on there, and people are they're sharing ideas and collaborating, but everybody's complaining about the quality of their employees.
Yeah,
you just can't find good help.
Yep.
And I used to be in that same boat.
And it's so interesting because I think, and I'm curious where you got that perception of how business, should be run, because you have a lot of what you're saying probably resonates with maybe the older generation, right? Where they're just like, no, like you have a job, you go there, you work there for 20 years or whatever, and you retire, and that's just how it is. And the whole idea of even like the cultural side of things and making it a fun workplace, and I'm the boss and you got to be told what to do, is obviously not what we're faced with today. Like it's a very different environment, today. So yeah, I'm curious, like, that experience obviously had a big impact on you to remember that. Like, is there anything else that you've realized now, like looking back, like where you are now compared to then? What's changed with the culture, and how do you guys make it an environment where people actually want to work? Because now you're in a position, right, where you're helping other maybe younger dentists or maybe dentists that are on their way out have a great culture, and it's all about making sure that the team and the culture aspect is there, so that obviously it's going to impact the bottom line and the revenue and all that fun stuff. So yeah, what have you learned, and how do you guys now train people to not make those same type of mistakes that you were as a young dentist?
So for me, I came to the realization, obviously, that something needed to change. And, I've had, some, great mentors and close friends that have really taught me about leadership and how crucial it is.
Yeah.
And so I just started consuming, content to help with leadership and development and to grow, and studied a lot on how to help create a positive culture, and how crucial the leader is in creating that culture.
Yeah.
So it's something that I work on pretty intentionally now.
Yeah.
And I've had to intentionally work on like letting the guard down, trying to open myself up, be a little more vulnerable, which has allowed me to start connecting with my team.
Yeah.
In more significant ways. And it's been, it still is a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I feel that where I am now compared to, even 7-8 years ago,
Yeah.
Our culture is so much healthier.
Yeah.
And our team, they want to be there. I mean, because like we enjoy being around each other. That's a big component of it.
Yeah.
I mean, even more so than compensation. I've had team members. In fact, I have one on my team right now that she's had offers to go other places and make more money. And I would tease her, every once in a while, I would check in and say, "Hey, are we still good? Like, are we, in dangerous water here?" And she told me even it was just a week or two ago. She said, I've been thinking a lot about like relationships at work, because she actually just became our office manager, probably about 3 or 4 months ago. She started off with me as a brand new assistant, and worked for a couple years. She works hard, super dedicated. Anyway, an opportunity came up and she just became our office manager. But so she's starting to think more about these leadership type things. How, like, what can I do to be a better leader? And, and I've helped, point her in, in the few different directions of things that she can consume and things that she can be reading to help her develop that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she said she's been focusing or thinking a lot about relationships.
Yeah.
And how important they are. And she told me, to be completely honest, if it wasn't for the relationship that we had, she's like, I wouldn't still be here.
Awesome. That's pretty impressive, right? I mean, like, you've come obviously a long way to now be that person where they're like, hey, it's because of you, not in spite of you, that I'm working here, right? Like, that's a big shift. Man, I love that. And I think there's so many things that we can obviously, take from that. And I think that, to your point, it starts with the leader of the pack, and they kind of take on the mantra and the personality and the vibe of the leader. One of the areas that we got to know each other from is from church, and so I got to watch you as a leader of young men, as well as in other capacities, and I was always just really impressed with your leadership skills, especially with cultivating like the young men. Is that something that you just is it something that I guess you've learned over time, or what are some of the things that you've learned in working maybe with the young men or in your church callings that has directly correlated maybe with like the business side of things, where you've just picked up on lessons, or maybe it was through failure, maybe it was through like, oh, I'm not going to do that again, or maybe it was just in some other way. But is there something that maybe translates from those experiences that you've had at church?
I think that would definitely be my, what would you call it? My learning ground is working with the youth. Yeah, because I love it. I love working with young people, working with teenagers, and fortunately, I had some great mentors. And we've got people that we've gone to church with. I've learned a ton from watching them. But one of the biggest things that I've learned is you need to be intentional, because relationships aren't created by accident. Like, you need to be pretty intentional. Especially with teenagers. Yeah. Because how teenagers. You're kind of guilty until proven innocent with them, just because you're an old person. Right? Yep. And so you have to create experiences for them that help them understand. And so I had seen that modeled from other young men's leaders that I had worked with. Yeah. And I thought, that's how I want to be. And so I've intentionally tried to model their behavior and try to create those relationships. And over the years, I just have seen it play out that if you really focus on creating that relationship, let people know that you care. It's basic stuff, but like, at least for me anyway, I had to like be very like intentional and not fake, and be like, okay, I'm supposed to say hi to you. Like, you gotta be, there's gotta be a genuine like desire there. And I think that's where it starts. right?
Yeah.
You get that. You have to have that genuine desire. And if it's there and you start putting in the effort, then things are going to come together. And so I had this mentality, like with work, like, no, that does not like cross over with personal life. I have my work life box, and I have my church life, my church and home life box.
Yeah.
And we don't cross those over.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know where I got that from.
Sure.
But I had those two areas compartmentalized. And then when I started to recognize I needed to make some changes, to your point, I really just started taking those principles and things that I had learned, working with youth, who I care deeply about. And as I reflected on my relationship with my team, I really did care about these people that I worked with.
Yeah.
One in particular, in fact, my office manager that just, she quit back in November. So 3-4 months ago. She left dentistry. She's working, for out in the industry, out of dentistry. She wanted some different scenery. We worked together for almost 10 years.
Wow.
I could not really stand her the first few years. And I think she couldn't stand, and I'm pretty sure she couldn't stand me.
Yeah.
Like, we were so different.
Yeah.
I mean, politically, religiously, we were on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
Like, we learned that there were a few topics we could not go into. Like, we had to, toe that line. But over the years, I grew to appreciate her so much. And even though, we still are wildly different, when I started to open up more to her and, share certain things about my life and ask her about things from her life, like, we developed this relationship of mutual respect, and it was hard to see her go. I can still remember I went and gave her a big hug, on her last day, and we're both crying, and it was cool. Yeah, you have to have that. I missed her. I would love to have her come back, because she was awesome at what she did, and she's a smart person. But that was a cool moment for me. Think, as despite how different our backgrounds are, and our opinions and beliefs are pretty wildly different. And I appreciated her so much as an individual, and for what she brought to the table. She was a huge asset to our team.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that story. And it's funny. I'll actually share a story as you were talking. It made me think of my favorite Jason story. And I think you know where we're going with this one. So the thing you have to know about Jason is he is all for just pushing himself. I think he wants to constantly just improve and push the limit. And so we made the mistake of actually asking him where he would like to go for a hike and a camp out with young men. So I'm thinking my idea of a hike or any type of camping experience is going to be backing up, the truck and maybe putting the tent out and probably sleeping in the truck and then eating something and going home. Jason's idea is very different from mine. So, and I found that out the hard way. So we I don't think anyone was totally prepared for this experience, but we ended up, he said, hey, it's just an easy hike. We're just, I've done it plenty of times before. The boys are going to have fun. They're going to, be able to hike, rappel and all this stuff. And so we're like, okay, yeah, sounds good. We don't know anything about it, but yeah, I trust you. Let's go. And so we ended up going. And I remember distinctly, so anyone that's from Arizona, Weaver's Needle, right, is where we went. So Weaver's Needle, it's kind of an interesting hike because it's two hikes pretty much in one, right? So like you get to the summit of this one hill, mountain, whatever you want to call it, and I'm getting up there and I'm pretty winded. I'm feeling like, okay, we made it. That was tough. Cool. Let's go ahead and camp. And I'm about ready to take my bag off, and they're like, no, we're like halfway through. Like, we're going up there. And I'm like, what? And it's just this straight up hill. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So, and we're backpacking, by the way. So we end up going in and, like hiking up. And then we're full on scaling these boulders, and we're off the path now. We're going up this hill. And that was hard, but I'm like, okay, this is a good experience. So then we get to the top, and I look at Jason's face, and I look at our guide's face that had all the rope and stuff, and I could tell there was some concern on their face. And we realized that where we were supposed to sleep that night had eroded. So there was no longer any flat area to actually sleep, which was awesome. So, and it's late, and there's nowhere else to go. So all of the leaders, we then literally we get hooked up to ropes, carabiner, all that stuff. We strap up and everything. We tie it to a tree, behind us, and we sleep in our sleeping bags, pretty much, at a 45-degree angle, where if we didn't have those ropes, we're just sliding all the way down. And of course, there's a little tiny area where the boys could sleep. I don't think any of us slept more than like an hour. And then the next day we had to hike up the rest of it. And anyways, that experience, I have so many stories on the way back. There were rattlesnakes, there were bees, I ran out of my water because it was leaking. And I think I almost, died of dehydration out there. And it was the most intense experience that I will never forget. And every time I drive by, I see that Weaver's Needle. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like the best. It was the worst experience, but I will never forget that experience. And I think that's what I love about you is I'm more of a softie with the, when I was in leadership, and you were always willing to push the limit and push the boys and help them understand, like, no, you can do it. It's probably going to stink. You're going to hate it, but you know what? You're going to look back. And that was a big lesson for me to be like, okay, like I can actually, do hard things, and I can do, not that I loved it necessarily. But I mean, there's so many funny stories that I think back to that time, and I'm like, and that's just one of, so many experiences where I was like, man, he's just cut from a different cloth, man. Like Jason is just different than the rest of us. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm sure that also is translated, in your success in business and all those things. But I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that was, one of my more memorable campouts as well. And
we never asked you again where to go.
Yeah, in full disclosure, that was a little more intense than I thought it was going to be.
Well, good. I'm glad that you didn't willfully put us into that position. But that was I wouldn't be surprised if you would though either. So I don't know if I totally believe you there, but no, that was so much fun. But I think that you've seen how that's translated. So now with your business, help me kind of understand, where it's gone from really just you had 3 practices, I think you mentioned, with your brother-in-law, and now it's like where are you at now? Like what are you doing at this point in your career?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if we mentioned it or not, but we joined up with a private equity partner. And just a real quick story. The first time we met with them, we had networked into them through a mutual marketing vendor. And they had reached out to one of my partners and contacted her and to set up a meeting. And my brother-in-law didn't even come the first time we met him. He's like, oh, you guys go take good notes. I'm going to go hiking. So he went hiking with my sister. And, we're meeting with these guys fly out from Chicago just to meet with us. And, the guy that started the group wasn't even there. He was hiking. And, because that was kind of his style. Because, I mean, Chet is very trusting and just, and he'll say, hey, I trust you to go, check it out, take good notes, and then let's talk about it. And so he definitely is not a micromanager, which was awesome for me because I was able to, to grow and really flourish in that environment. But at any rate, after meeting with, there was one of the partners, one of the owners of the private equity firm, and one of their vice presidents or directors sat down with us, and about 10 minutes in, I knew this is big. This is a big deal. Chet needs to be here.
Yeah.
And they had asked, like, where's Chet? And I mean, I didn't tell him that he went hiking. I said, oh, he couldn't make it. But me and two of my other partners were able to be there. And so we, learned pretty quickly this is something we want to be involved in. And, that's the direction that dentistry is going. I mean, it was headed toward consolidation. These, groups, or DSOs is what you'll hear them referred to as pretty commonly. Mm-hmm. So we just felt like the timing was good we had already had a small cluster of practices, and our equity partner said we want to start a DSO here in the Southwest, and we would like you guys to be our anchor partner.
Wow.
And then they had eventually asked my brother-in-law to be the CEO, and
wow.
So he's running the organization. My other partner, she's really the brains, I think, behind our operations. So she started off as our COO, and then me and our other partner had more of a clinical focus on just doing dentistry and helping with our clinical advisory board, those types of things. And so with the help and expertise from from our private equity partners, mm-hmm. I mean, they just poured gas on what we were doing. So we were able to grow, one, because they provided the capital for us to do that, but they also provided a different perspective. Mm-hmm. One thing they kept saying to us as we would meet, they say, you guys need to get outside of your four walls.
Yeah.
Because we were so used to thinking this is my box, how do I function within, my four walls, my office. They said, you guys got to get your heads up and think bigger. And so we were pretty good, I think, at systems and processes. Mm-hmm. Kim, one of our partners, she was awesome, and she had our systems dialed in, really well. But when we officially joined with our private equity partners, we were at 5 offices. And we learned pretty quickly that our systems were going to have to change and evolve.
Yeah, I bet.
So our equity partners were huge in helping us do that.
And you're now at how many offices?
So now we're so we started here in Arizona with the 5, and now we have 80 locations over 8 states.
Wow.
So we've pretty much got the Western United States all covered.
Sheesh. Yeah, what got you, to 5 offices is not going to get you to to 80, right? So that's another super interesting topic that we'd have to discuss at some other time. But that's fascinating to me to learn about businesses that then have to learn how to go from, hey, I'm making, 6 figures is different than 7 figures, and then you get to 8 figures and then multiple 8 figures. And at that point, it looks completely different. And it really comes down to the operations and the systems. The COO is critical. And so I'd love to, learn more about that. But I mean, that's a bit, you say it so nonchalantly, like it's not a big deal, but I'm sure that there is a lot that went into you guys, going from 5 to 80. That's a big deal, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
And so, man, that's awesome. That's so cool to hear that you guys have gone that far. Anything else that through your journey, in life that you want to add to this, that maybe some things that you've learned along the way that have helped you to be like, hey, I need to make sure to be better at this or that, things that you've learned maybe the hard way, through life experiences?
The things that I've come to learn, and I listened to another podcast recently that talks about this, is you have 2 choices, growth or comfort. Mm-hmm. Well, you probably know. I mean, one of our, Russ, our good friend, does, mm-hmm. On his podcast, he had one where he talked about that, and I love that concept. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can either choose to be comfortable, or you can choose to grow. And there's times in life where you need to, obviously shift between the 2. Where when life gets crazy, sometimes you have to kind of shift more into autopilot. But as I listened to that podcast, it made me think of it. There's a graphic I've seen, and I got to see if I can describe it. I don't know if you've seen, there's a graph of growth. So you can see you have you have comfort, and then as you step outside of that comfort zone, there's some anxiety and some fear. But then you have to break through that zone to get into that growth zone. And no, you're not going to grow until you break through that fear and anxiety stage. And this is something that I try to talk about with our doctors that I work with and doctors that I mentor. You have to be willing to step outside of that comfort zone to grow. So I mean, and I think this principle applies. Whether it's for me, the biggest application is in clinical dentistry. When you graduate from dental school, I mean, I don't know if I should say this, but your dental school's objective is to get you just so that you're not dangerous. Like, okay, we don't want you to harm anybody.
Yeah.
And if we can get you to where we're pretty confident you're not going to like really harm someone, then okay, you can graduate with your degree. But the real education starts like when you start practicing.
Yep.
That's why we call it practice, because you're constantly learning. There's been over the years there's been a lot of procedures where I'm in the middle of it and I think I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, how am I gonna because there's a variety of things, right? Because when you're dealing with humans and biology, things don't always go like according to plan. It's not like in the textbook like this. Okay, when this happens, you do this. Like, you have to figure things out. Yeah. And there's been a number of times where I've been in a procedure or in a treatment room, and I mean, my heart's pounding, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not the way it's supposed to go. And then you have an anxious patient, and they don't open very big, and so there's a lot of stress there. But you have to learn to handle that. Yeah. And you've got to break through that. And I think that principle applies no matter what your industry is. I mean, you're going to get into like uncharted territory. You're going to get into things where, okay, this isn't exactly, how I learned about it. So what am I going to do? Yeah. So if you're not willing to break through that, you're just going to stay in the same place. One of my mentors in dental school said something that stuck with me to this day. He said, when you graduate, you can go out and practice for 20 or 30 years, or you can practice 1 year 20 or 30 times. Which one are you going to do? And he was big on growing and bettering yourself and continuing education. He said, if you think you're going to do things the way that you're doing them right now, 10 years from now, you're wrong. Or I guess if you want to be advancing and growing, that's not the mindset. Yeah. You don't want to be the dentist that just does the same thing every year for 20 or 30 years. Yeah. There's so much to learn in this industry. And I'm so grateful for that that advice, because that's had a huge impact on me. Because I mean, not that I want to just try every new thing that comes out, but bettering myself as a dentist, or picking niches or things that I want to focus on and really dive deep into. That advice has been super helpful and been huge for me to grow and develop.
Man, I love that. And you know what? It just clicked for me, because I think that dentists, and I don't know if this is even true, right? But you hear the suicide rate, it was so high at some point. And I don't know the statistics or if it's changed or whatever. But I think that might actually have something to do with it. The fact that maybe they go into dentistry thinking that they're going to do the same year for 30 years, right? And they're not growing and improving. And so, yeah, you can understand why. I mean, any of us we are creative beings. Like, we need to grow and create and do. And I love the either growth or comfort, which one's is it going to be? Because it cannot be in the middle. Like, there is no neutral in life. And I love how you kind of brought all that together. when it comes to, and that obviously doesn't just apply to dentistry, but you can imagine, and I've always wondered, honestly, the old school dentists that go every day and they're just doing root canals day after day and cavities. I mean, I would go crazy. Because I need variety, I need change, I need, what's next, kind of that squirrel syndrome a little bit, but I love that advice, and I can see why it would stick with you, and I've seen how it's obviously impacted your life and your career and what you've done with it, turning it from, hey, I got 3 to 5 to 80, and then who knows what's next in the next 10 years, right? Yeah. Like, the sky's the limit with you guys, and I just that's super cool. So thanks for sharing that. And yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yep.